Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I grew up in the shadow of the cross. I mean that very literally. I grew up in a house that from my bedroom window, I could see every day and every night an enormous cross. It was just on a mountain next to where we lived, and it had been built by a gentleman who wanted to memorialize his wife, and he had an amphitheater up there that was often used for various events. Whenever they would hold a musical, we'd be able to hear, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers wafting across the valley. That cross never bothered me, even though it was a visual, stark reminder day in, day out, even though when we gave directions to our house, we said, look for the mountain with the cross, no problem. There was a cross across town. I didn't even think about that. There was a cross across town. Work with me, people. I know, it's late, but we'll get here. That cross bugged me much more. That was a cross that was built on public land as a memorial for the fallen soldiers. That cross went all the way to the Supreme Court. Why is one cross okay? Why was the other so objectionable and, unfortunately, remains so objectionable? Do I have anything against memorials to soldiers? Do I think crosses only are appropriate for wives? No. The problem is one was built on private land with private funds for a private purpose. The other was built on public land, maintained by public funds, and maintained for a public purpose. But think for the difference of symbolism between those two. The cross that was built by one man as a sign of devotion and faith that he found, the eternal link to his wife through his faith, this is a beautiful thing. I may disagree and not adhere to his faith, but I can recognize in it a true act of love and devotion and of the strength that he drew from his religion. The cross that was built across town on public land, on the other hand, this was built in a way that actually made a mockery of the sacrifice of the thousands of soldiers that it was purported to memorialize. For those soldiers died not so that there could be a cross there. Those soldiers died so that there wouldn't be crosses on public land in our country. Nor Star of David's, nor statues of Buddha, nor mosques, nor cathedrals, nor any other religious symbol. The United States knew at its inception that it wished to avoid the wars of religion that had bedeviled Europe for centuries. It knew that it did not want to enshrine a preferential faith because it knew that many of the people who came to this country were fleeing exactly that form of oppression and wanted to be able to be safe, secure in their faith in this land with no coercion, with no preferential treatment. For it was not enough, said our founding fathers, merely not to have a state religion or merely to give permission for people to have their own faith. The government had to make sure it wasn't putting its thumb on the scales at all and leaning one way or another to one faith or another. For even in subtle ways, the pressure of the state, we do not know how much difference it will make. The power of the state is hard to diminish, and when it leans, even a little, the pressure can be something that is insurmountable by the individual. How many of you or your grandparents grew up going to public schools in the United States, learning the Lord's Prayer? Really? None of you? Or perhaps, I see a few more hands. Yes, exactly. Why? What was the justification given of why school time would be taken for you to learn a Christian prayer? Commonality. Indeed. We are going to make us all the same. We are going to show that we are united in our faith in Jesus, in our faith in God. But I'm sorry, the prayer comes from a very particular form of God. That is not commonality. That is erasing the things that actually unite us. Our allegiance to the freedoms of this country, not our allegiance to one particular manifestation of culture that comes from one particular community within this country. How many of you, either personally, your children, your grandchildren, remember in public schools making Christmas decorations, singing Christmas carols? Oh, of course, it's obvious. That's what you do when winter comes around, right? What else is the teacher going to do? Teach math? Teach spelling? No. And why? Why was this part of a school curriculum? Or should I say, is a part of a school curriculum? For I still have, over and over and over, every year that I have been a rabbi, students coming to me asking me, Rabbi, why are they making me make cards for Santa in school? Rabbi, why are they teaching us, come all ye faithful, in middle school? Why are we doing this? Why? It was supposed to be fun, exactly like the exercise of decorating Easter eggs, which I will tell you is fun, right? Dyeing those eggs is pretty cool. It's a neat experience. It goes in white, it comes out different colors, it's very artistic, absolutely. Why does it have to be done in the week before Easter rather than done in September? Because it is a religious act. Because it is bound to a statement of faith by one particular version of faith. And it is done there because the majority of the families in most parts of our country automatically assume that that's what should be done at that time. And that indeed the children will enjoy it just as they do when they enjoy making decorations at home. So why wouldn't you also want them to have this fun experience with the resources of a school which can teach them better than the family around the kitchen table? Why wouldn't you? Do you have no answer to that question? Do you believe it's purely rhetorical? Have you assumed that the answer is, of course, it's fine the way that so many within our country have and allowed it to continue to be perpetuated for centuries, being blind to the inherent contradiction between supporting religious activities with public funds, taking the money that is given through taxes, fines, and other fees that are taken from all faiths and people of no faith, and put towards the embellishment of one particular faith, the celebration of one particular religion. And yes, they may occasionally decide to hire some rabbi to come in and do a public menorah lighting ceremony in the town square, a paltry little menorah next to the giant 40-foot tall Christmas tree. Maybe they will put a few candles on the banners going down the street in order to claim that they are somehow being fair to all faiths, but it is not about being fair to all faiths, it is about the state having no faith. The state is not here to perpetuate any religion at all. For to perpetuate, to support, to encourage anyone is to diminish all the others. I have read and seen many people who are still perplexed that a non-Christian can be elected to public office. The problem, they say, how would they take the oath? How would they put their hand on a Christian Bible and swear, and why should we accept their oath? Do you need to put your hand on a Christian Bible to take an oath? Do you need to put your hand on any religious text to take an oath? No. If a person wishes to, by all means, if it is a sign of their faith, of how they take promises within their faith community, by all means. But it has become so ubiquitous and so expected, as has the additional inclusion, so help me God, which is not part of the formal oath of office either, that were a person to omit it, people would claim that their inauguration, their appointment, their vow was null and void. We have come to take for granted the subtle blanket of faith in this country to such a degree that we don't even recognize how it affects us. Throughout the 20th century, and even continuing into the 21st, this has had a pernicious effect upon the Jewish community in particular. Because we're small, we're tiny, and we're awkward. We're used to that. We're used to being awkward. I like to think of us as being the grist that eventually makes the pearl. But that grist does annoy the oyster. And sometimes we don't like to be the nuisance. Sometimes we don't like to be the kid who says, I don't want to sing Silent Night. because that is not merely a cultural song, that is a declaration of faith. And we don't want to have to deal with the teacher who says, why? You're not going to follow my instructions? You're being disobedient in class? Sometimes we don't want to care about what we're coloring because we'd rather color in a Santa than learn spelling or math, because it is a lot more fun than learning spelling or math. Sometimes we don't want to be the person who complains about what City Hall is doing, showing up at the town hall meeting and having our few minutes to tell them that we do not think it is appropriate to spend thousands of dollars of taxpayer money in ways that promote one particular faith over others. Because you know what? It's just not going to make a difference, isn't it, anyway? And they're the majority, so why shouldn't they be allowed to do this? Constitution, of course. And indeed, we have lost millions of Jews into this country, simply walking away from Judaism because they're tired of fighting against the tide. But there is another growing movement away from Judaism that is simply away from religion. The heavy hand of religion that continues to actually increase in recent decades across the public sphere has made many distrustful and dissatisfied with religion altogether. If this is the way religion operates in the public sphere, if this is the way religion imposes itself upon the lives of others, then Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, who cares? I don't want no part of it. Why should I want to be part of any social activity that thinks that it is so right and righteous that it will take money from others to promote itself at their expense and do so in contradiction to the primary values and laws of the country that it claims it represents? If that's what religion does, says so many, I don't need religion. And indeed, the fastest growing faith in the United States is none. The fastest growing faith in the United States, N-O-N-E, not the people who wear the black habits. None. Why? Because the public face of religion has become so offensive in so many places, and they want nothing to do with it. I have had Jews who complain to me about religion from what they have learned from watching the public realm, not from Judaism itself. They have learned that religion is selfish. They have learned that religion is unthoughtful. They have learned that religion can be cruel. They have learned that religion will dominate even those who do not adhere to it. Those are not Jewish values. That's not the Jewish faith, but they have seen religion act with an iron fist over and over to the point that they can no longer distinguish between what we teach and what is done by those who constantly wave the banner of faith, those who constantly pound on the word God within state houses and within legislatures. This is why, on Monday, we are having a special panel program, this is the commercial part, from an organization of Jews for secular democracy. Now, there are many organizations out there that promote secular democracy, but this group said there isn't a Jewish voice speaking to this issue. There isn't a voice coming from our people and our unique concerns of why having a secular democracy is in our best interest. Now, it's very important to understand that neither I nor this group are trying to say there shouldn't be religion in our country. Each person should, of course, I'm a rabbi, have a faith, find a connection to God, find a belief that allows them to find strength and determination through all things. I spoke of that at length when talking to Adriana, and I would want no one to be deprived of that. But I would also want no one to be forced to have that. For as much as you may think that we are of similar mind to many who wish to encourage more faith within the public sphere, recognize the truth that they outnumber us 100 to 1, and that we will be swamped if they have their way. We may think that saying, "In God we trust," is a universal statement, but imposing "In God we trust" on those who are unsure of exactly what it means, allowing that to become a touchstone and a requirement in all things, is only one step before it becomes "In Jesus we trust." I think that we can recognize that that is not where we wish to go. And be aware that even if you are Christian, and think that maybe having a theocracy might not be a bad idea. Our founders knew what they were doing back in 1776. Because even if you were to think that Jesus should be within our public realm, whose version? Catholic? Protestant? Methodist? Presbyterian? Anglican? Exactly which variety you think should be dominant and given the preferential treatment? Should Catholics receive the same funding as Protestants? What about the Baptists? What about the Southern Baptists? What about the Anabaptists? The Quakers? Do you really think that it will stop once God has been pushed into the public realm? It will only stop when it is made to stop. And when it does, each person will be free to know God as they choose, to follow a path without resistance, without turmoil, without pressure, so that they can truly rise in their spirit and connect to that which is most holy, rather than walking away in disgust. Shabbat Shalom. Monday at 1 via Zoom. Information in the most recent mailings and everything else.